This is a beautiful occasion. There's no question about that. A happy event. But there's one person here that I feel terribly sorry for, and that's Anna Maria. Because Anna Maria has had thus far the worst view in the house. Whereas she should be looking at a sea of smiling faces, she's been looking at something very different up until now. Before I begin, please let me take care of some housekeeping. There is a grey Nissan Altima registration PCX 1397, which is mine, and for sale. Please see me after the ceremony if you're interested. Certified check or cash. 14 months ago, on the school trip, I made my first visit to China, that wonderful country to our east or to our west, depending on which direction you are facing at the time. What an experience. Forbidden City, the Pearl Tower, the Bird's Nest, the Great Wall. My visit was a much-needed assault on my senses and my preconceptions. I ate jellyfish, river snails, scorpion, and snake, although mercifully, not at the same time. And I ate at least one substance which to this day remains entirely unidentified. But of all these cultural and culinary experiences considered, it was one other moment which provides me with my most enduring memory of China. And however unlikely it sounds, the following anecdote is true. I was in the hotel lobby in Beijing on the morning of an excursion, chatting with the great Dennis Panzer. Dennis and I noticed two bellboys looking at me, both pointing and giggling almost uncontrollably. I went through the usual routine checks. Which I haven't done this afternoon, actually happened. I went through the usual routine checks. Was my fly secured? Was I standing too close to Dennis? And had I remembered to get dressed? But all seemed to be present and correct. However, the giggling continued. I asked Wu Jia, our teacher of Chinese, if she might find out what was provoking such mirth. She chatted with these two young men, began herself to laugh hard, and returned with the following bulletin. They are laughing, Patrick, because they think that you look exactly like their hero, Justin Bieber. First of all, I am not sure why you're laughing. Second, for those of you who are not familiar with Justin, it is fair to say that from a distance, there is a similarity. Admittedly, a very large distance, maybe from Beijing to Atlanta, for example. You may be surprised to hear that as far as I know, this is the only time in my life that I have been compared to Justin Bieber so far. I will admit that our resemblance is not uncanny. When Wu Jia shared this bulletin with me, a few ideas came immediately to mind. Were my tattoos showing? Was I wearing too much bling? And latterly, I reflected upon how liberally we employ the term hero to describe those who are simply famous. Class of 2014, I accept that I am old and therefore boring. But I am not yet at an age at which I can't appreciate why Justin Bieber is popular, but I do question why he would be a hero. We live in a time, I think, when celebrities are often wrongly elevated to the status of the heroic. Whether or not one achieves the status of hero is, of course, hugely subjective. To many, for example, Edward Snowden is a traitor, but to others, he is a hero. But I would suggest that being heroic requires certain discernible virtues that are demonstrated over a sustained period of time. In 1968, assassins' bullets took the lives of two modern-day heroes, Dr. Martin Luther King and Bobby Kennedy. And although I am reassured by my parents that the two things are unrelated, I was born in 1968. My birthplace was Bromley in southeast London. If you have had or do have the desire to visit Bromley, please don't. Save your time, your money, and go somewhere more beautiful, like Tifton, Georgia, for example. In fact, so ugly is the town of Bromley that it was once described by one of its former residents, the comedian Frankie Boyle, as a lobotomy made out of bricks. And when I was a boy, my heroes came from the worlds of sport and music. And yet their accomplishments are more prosaic, of course, in comparison to those of Dr. King, for example. Perhaps unexpectedly, many of my heroes came from the local area, the town of Bromley, because despite being void of any geographical and architectural interest, rather bizarrely, a 3 or 4 mile zone around Bromley has provided the world with what appears to be a disproportionate number of heroes. The Rolling Stones, Mick Jagger and Keith Richards met on the platform of the remarkably drab Dartford railway station. Led Zeppelin's John Paul Jones was raised in the visually awful town of Sidcup. Botanist Charles Darwin and author H.G. Wells also lived in Bromley. What makes these individuals heroes to millions around the world, whilst making them almost immeasurably wealthy at the same time? I would suggest that talent, timing, and good fortune lead to their enduring appeal, and also to their tremendous wealth. But with the exception of Charles Darwin or H.G. Wells, I would question their status as truly heroic. One of my largest heroes of those days was David Bowie, a long-term resident also of the town of Bromley. So enamored was I with David Bowie that at one stage I sported a poor facsimile of his famous Ziggy Stardust haircut. Dyed orange hair, spiked and long. And in fact, as a parting gift to each of you, the class of 2014, I have printed a photograph of me from that time, and if you look now, you will find that picture under your chair. Ah, so young and still so gullible. David Bowie's song Heroes, with the chorus line, "We could be heroes just for one day," was played throughout the London 2012 Olympics. The Olympic Games, like the imminent Soccer World Cup, always provide us with a new generation of heroes. But I suspect that many of them will be heroes only for a short period of time, if not just for one day. Because time demonstrates that for every Jesse Owens, there is an Oscar Pistorius, and for every Michael Jordan, there is a Lance Armstrong. The difference being that their character and accomplishments were authentic, and their actions stood the test of time. And as such, the ideas of Atlanta historian and writer Daniel Boorstin are pertinent. Time makes heroes, but dissolves celebrities. Ernest Hemingway tells us that as we get older, it is harder to have heroes, but it remains necessary nevertheless. And as we age, the criteria for establishing who we consider to be heroic often changes too. And yet we still need heroic role models irrespective of our stage of life. It is less to do with celebrity and more to do with those who demonstrate consistently a blend of key character traits that seem to be of universal appeal: honesty, compassion, resilience, altruism, inclusiveness, selflessness, and courage, for example. Maya Angelou, who sadly passed away this week, tells us that courage is the most important of all the virtues, because without courage, you can't practice any other virtue consistently. Class of 2014, you are aware, I hope, that you have those qualities and others in abundance. Please know that despite the inevitable tensions that exist between you, parents, teachers, and sometimes administrators, that we recognize and admire those qualities in you. You have shown courage in the face of significant transitions, as we have heard, from far-off foreign lands. And the adjustment to the idiosyncratic ways of the United States, the South, and of Atlanta International School have not been easy themselves. In the face of family concerns, poor choices, broken bones, broken dreams, and broken hearts, you have shown resilience. You have funded orphanages, rescued animals, championed minorities, and supported the marginalized. You have been, and you remain, compassionate. You are committed to making your particular world better, not just for yourselves, but for the majority. These are the values that will lead you to lives of fulfillment, although it might not always feel that way. Class of 2014, it is my honor to graduate from AIS alongside you. I shall miss you. If ever you are in Hong Kong, please let me know, and I'll be in Singapore. And so in honor of this moment, and this being my last graduation address at AIS, I thought I would end, as a gift to the class of 2014, with a song. I thought I would end with a song and a rendition of David Bowie's song, Heroes. I thought I would end with a rendition of David Bowie's song, Heroes, but then I remembered that I can't sing. And so, as an alternative to song, let me conclude, please, by returning to Dr. King. My favorite of Dr. King's quotes, inscribed on his memorial in Washington, D.C., speaks very loudly to me, and to, I hope, all of us as members of this altruistic and inclusive AIS environment. On Christmas Eve, 1967, in Atlanta, Dr. King said, "If we are to have peace on earth, our loyalties must become ecumenical rather than sectional. Our loyalties must transcend our race, our tribe, our class, and our nation. And this means we must develop a world perspective." Class of 2014, I can't help feeling that Dr. King must often have imagined individuals such as yourselves when he said those words. And I think he hoped that families and schools would one day produce young people with a well-developed world perspective. In comparison to many young people, you are uniquely equipped to fulfill Dr. King's expectations. And now you are finished at AIS. It's time to continue your good work, but in new environments. Provide for yourselves and for your families, and continue to show courage, resilience, honesty, and compassion. Be a hero to your families, your children, and your colleagues, and your communities, but not fleetingly, not just for one day. That would be a terrible waste of your wonderful talents and your opportunities. Ms. Sudbury and Mr. Glass, it is my pleasure to confirm that the members of the class of 2014 have met the requirements to graduate from Atlanta International School.